What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. If you are a Dallas Cowboys fan, you are going to want to sit down for this one because we have some absolutely massive news coming out of Dallas today, and it involves none other than the new head coach Brian Schottenheimer and what appears to be a very deliberate and calculated plan for the 2026 NFL Draft. Now, I know what you're thinking. We haven't even gotten through the current season yet, and we're already talking about draft plans. But that is exactly the kind of forward-thinking approach that Schottenheimer is bringing to this franchise. And honestly, it's one of the most exciting things I've heard come out of the star in Frisco in a very long time. So buckle up, because we are going to break all of this down. We're going to look at what this means for the roster, what positions are being targeted, and why this could completely change the trajectory of the Dallas Cowboys for the next decade. And before we get into all of that, make sure you smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a video, because we are covering everything Cowboys all day, every day, right here on this channel. So let's start from the very beginning. When Jerry Jones made the somewhat surprising decision to promote Brian Schottenheimer from offensive coordinator to head coach, a lot of people had mixed reactions. Some people loved the move because Schottenheimer had already built strong relationships within the locker room and had proven himself to be a capable play caller and offensive mind. Other people were skeptical because they felt like Jerry Jones was once again taking the safe route, promoting from within rather than going out and hiring a big-name coach from outside the organization. But regardless of where you stood on that debate, one thing that has become crystal clear in recent weeks is that Schottenheimer is not just a placeholder. This man has a vision, and that vision is becoming more and more apparent every single day, especially when it comes to how he wants to build this roster through the draft. Now here's where things get really interesting. According to multiple reports and some very telling comments that Schottenheimer himself has made during press conferences and interviews, the Cowboys are already laying the groundwork for a very specific and strategic approach to the 2026 NFL Draft. And when I say strategic, I mean this is not your typical, we're going to take the best player available kind of approach. No. What Schottenheimer appears to be doing is identifying the core weaknesses of this roster, projecting what the team is going to need not just next year, but 2 and 3 years down the road, and then building a draft board that specifically targets those positions of need. This is the kind of long-term roster construction that championship teams do, and it's something that the Cowboys have honestly been lacking for a very long time. So what positions are we talking about here? Well, the first and most obvious one is the offensive line. If you have watched any Cowboys football over the past couple of seasons, you know that the offensive line has gone from being one of the best in the NFL to being a unit that has really struggled to maintain consistency. Tyron Smith is gone, Travis Frederick retired years ago, and the interior of the line has been a revolving door of players who have not been able to establish themselves as long-term starters. Schottenheimer knows that you cannot build a championship team without a dominant offensive line, and everything he has said publicly suggests that this is going to be a major priority in the 2026 draft. He has talked about wanting to establish a physical identity on offense, wanting to be able to run the football and control the line of scrimmage, and you simply cannot do that without elite offensive linemen. So expect the Cowboys to be targeting the best offensive line prospects in the 2026 class, whether that's tackles, guards, or even a center depending on how the current roster shakes out. But the offensive line is just the beginning. Another area that Schottenheimer has reportedly zeroed in on is the defensive side of the ball, specifically the pass rush and the secondary. Now, the Cowboys have had some really good pass rushers in recent years, with Micah Parsons being the obvious centerpiece, but the depth behind him has been a concern, and there have been questions about whether the team has enough complementary pieces to generate consistent pressure without relying solely on Parsons to do everything. Schottenheimer, along with the defensive coaching staff, appears to understand that you need multiple guys who can get after the quarterback if you want to compete in today's NFL, and the 2026 draft class is shaping up to have some really talented edge rushers and defensive linemen that could be perfect fits for what Dallas is trying to build. And then there's the secondary, which has arguably been the biggest weakness of this team for the past several seasons. The Cowboys have struggled mightily in coverage, giving up big plays and failing to create turnovers at the rate you would expect from a team with championship aspirations. Schottenheimer has been very vocal about wanting to improve the back end of the defense, and early scouting reports suggest that the Cowboys' personnel department is already doing extensive research on the top cornerback and safety prospects in the 2026 class. This is not something that just happens overnight. When a team is already scouting prospects for a draft that is still a year or more away, that tells you there is a very deliberate plan in place, and that is exactly what appears to be happening in Dallas right now. Now here's the thing that I think makes this whole situation even more fascinating. Schottenheimer is not just focused on what positions to draft. He's also reportedly changing the way the Cowboys evaluate and scout talent in general. One of the criticisms of the Dallas Cowboys organization over the years has been that they tend to overvalue certain metrics and undervalue others, particularly when it comes to things like character, football IQ, and how a player fits within a specific scheme. Schottenheimer appears to be pushing for a more holistic approach to player evaluation, one that takes into account not just a player's physical tools, but also his mental makeup, his ability to learn and adapt, and how he is going to fit within the specific system that the coaching staff is implementing. This is a subtle but incredibly important shift in philosophy, and it could have a huge impact on the quality of players that the Cowboys bring in through the draft moving forward. There's also been some buzz about the Cowboys potentially looking to trade down in the draft if the opportunity presents itself. Now, this is something that Jerry Jones has historically been reluctant to do. Jerry loves making the big splash pick, taking the guy with the name recognition and the highlight reel. But Schottenheimer seems to have a different perspective. He reportedly believes that accumulating more draft picks, particularly in the second and third rounds, can be just as valuable as having a single first-round pick, especially if you have done your homework and identified players who you believe are undervalued by the rest of the league. This draft capital accumulation strategy is something that teams like the Philadelphia Eagles and the Baltimore Ravens have used to build incredibly deep rosters, and it would be a welcome change for a Cowboys team that has often found itself lacking depth at key positions. Let me also talk about the quarterback situation for a moment, because you cannot discuss the Cowboys' draft plans without addressing the elephant in the room. Dak Prescott's future with this team has been a topic of debate for what feels like forever, and depending on how things play out over the next year, the 2026 draft could be a pivotal moment for the franchise at the quarterback position. Now I want to be clear, there is no indication right now that the Cowboys are planning to draft a quarterback to replace Dak. Schottenheimer has publicly supported Prescott and has talked about building the offense around him. But smart organizations always have contingency plans, and you can bet that the Cowboys scouting department is keeping a close eye on the top quarterback prospects in the 2026 class just in case circumstances change. That's not a knock on Dak. That's just good business. And it's the kind of thing that every well-run franchise does behind the scenes. Another aspect of this whole plan that has really caught my attention is the way Schottenheimer is involving his entire coaching staff in the draft preparation process. In the past, there has sometimes been a disconnect between the coaching staff and the front office when it comes to identifying draft targets. The scouts would grade the players, the front office would make the picks, and then the coaches would be left trying to figure out how to make those players fit into their system. Schottenheimer is reportedly breaking down those barriers and creating a much more collaborative environment where the coaches have significant input into which players are targeted. This means that when a player is drafted, There is already a clear plan for how he is going to be developed and utilized within the system. This kind of alignment between the coaching staff and the personnel department is something that the best organizations in the NFL have been doing for years, and it's encouraging to see the Cowboys moving in that direction. Now let's talk about some specific prospects that could be on the Cowboys' radar for 2026. Obviously, it's still very early and a lot can change between now and then, but there are some names that are already generating buzz as potential fits for what Dallas is trying to build. On the offensive line, there are several highly touted prospects in the college ranks right now who are projected to be top picks in 2026, and the Cowboys are reportedly already sending scouts to watch these players on a regular basis. On the defensive side, there are a handful of edge rushers and cornerbacks who could be exactly what Schottenheimer and his staff are looking for to upgrade the defense. I'm not going to name specific players right now because honestly, so much can change over the course of a college football season, but just know that the Cowboys are doing their due diligence and they are casting a wide net in their scouting efforts. One more thing I want to touch on is the financial aspect of all this because it ties directly into the draft strategy. The Cowboys have been dealing with some salary cap challenges over the past few years, with big contracts for guys like Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and Micah Parsons eating up a significant portion of the cap. This makes the draft even more important because drafted players on rookie contracts are the most cost-effective way to add talent to the roster. Schottenheimer understands this, and his emphasis on building through the draft is at least partially motivated by the financial realities of the salary cap. If the Cowboys can hit on their draft picks and develop homegrown talent on affordable rookie deals, it gives them much more flexibility to retain their core players and add key free agents when needed. This is roster building 101, and it's something that the best teams in the NFL do year in and year out. I also want to mention that Schottenheimer has talked about wanting to draft players who are versatile and can play multiple positions. This is a trend that we are seeing across the NFL, where coaches are placing a premium on players who can line up in different spots and give you flexibility on game day. For the Cowboys, this could mean targeting defensive players who can rush the passer from multiple alignments, offensive linemen who can play both guard and tackle, or defensive backs who can play both cornerback and safety. This kind of versatility not only makes the roster deeper, but also makes the team much harder to game plan against, which is a significant advantage in a league where teams are constantly trying to find mismatches and exploit weaknesses. So when you step back and look at the big picture, what Brian Schottenheimer appears to be doing is building a comprehensive long-term plan for how the Dallas Cowboys are going to construct their roster through the draft. And the 2026 draft is a central piece of that plan. He is identifying the positions of greatest need. He is changing the way the organization evaluates talent. He is fostering a more collaborative relationship between the coaching staff and the front office. And he is thinking about how every decision fits into the larger goal of building a championship-caliber team. This is not the kind of short-sighted, win-now-at-all-costs approach that we have sometimes seen from the Cowboys in the past. This is a measured, intelligent, and strategic approach to team building, and honestly, it's exactly what this franchise needs right now. Now, I know there are going to be some skeptics out there who say that plans are just plans and that execution is what matters, and that is absolutely true. The Cowboys can have the greatest draft plan in the world, but if they don't execute on it, if they miss on their picks, if they fail to develop the players they bring in, then none of it matters. But the fact that there is a clear plan in place, the fact that the head coach is taking an active role in the process, and the fact that the organization appears to be aligned in its approach, those are all incredibly positive signs. This is how winning organizations operate, and if the Cowboys can follow through on what Schottenheimer is laying out, there is no reason why this team can't get back to being a legitimate Super Bowl contender in the very near future. And here's one final thought that I want to leave you with. The NFL is a league where the margin between winning and losing is incredibly thin. One or two draft picks can be the difference between a team that makes the playoffs and a team that misses out, between a team that wins a divisional round game and a team that gets bounced in the wild card. The Cowboys have been on the wrong side of that margin for far too long, and what Schottenheimer is doing with this 2026 draft plan represents a genuine effort to shift the odds in Dallas's favor. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take patience and discipline and smart decision-making. But the foundation is being laid right now, and that should give every Cowboys fan a reason to be excited about the future of this franchise. All right, everyone. That is going to do it for this video. I want to hear from you in the comments below. What do you think about Schottenheimer's approach to the 2026 draft? What positions do you think the Cowboys should prioritize? Do you believe this plan can actually work, or are you skeptical that the organization can follow through? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one of them, and I love engaging with you guys. And once again, if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and share this video with any Cowboys fans you know, because they need to hear about this. I will see you all in the next one. Stay safe, stay blessed, and as always, go Cowboys.